everyone, Paraskevia. It's Friday, I'm Mr. Smith, we're in Chicago, and today we're going to be learning about the verb to do in Georgian. We're going to be learning about the verb from my perspective, your perspective, his, her and its perspective, from the past, present and the future. And a few extra things also just to spice up the mix. So if you're ready, let's go. Slide 1 deals with how I interact with the verb keteba. Keteba is the verb to make. Whether I made it, whether I'm making it, whether I'm going to make it. This verb often in English blends with to do something, it also blends with preparing something. So this is really a case where you go big or you go home, because I've got to introduce a few things to get this right. The first thing, just to keep it simple, I've stuck with food, right? Or drink. Well, we already know. If you're preparing coffee, you're making coffee, or even if you're doing coffee, Kava, coffee. Sachmeli, a meal. Kharcho, just a dish, like a stewed beef, almost a bit like a goulash. Sausme, breakfast. Sadili, lunch. Vachshami, dinner. This is within our vocabulary. And I'm going to use keteba as our verb of making. But I would add a disclaimer right now that Momzadeba really is the verb to prepare. So I might approach this and add this later on. But let's look at it, for example, right now, what am I doing? I'm preparing a meal. So, me va keteb sachmels. Sachmeli now takes an S, because it's not in the nominative case anymore. I'm interacting with the meal because I'm making it. So, achla me va keteb sachmels. I'm preparing a meal now. In the past, va keteb stays constant. It's the same. If you look at it, it's the same. But you add D to show that I was making it, to show that I'm speaking in the past. So I chose coffee, kava. Drez me va keteb di khavas. Drez me va keteb di khavas. I was making coffee today. Making, preparing, doing. In the future, I have, of course, standard chwal, tomorrow. But I also added here gvian saramos, later on in the evening. Am saramos, which we've already seen in other slides. Gvian saramos, megava keteb, charchos. Gvian saramos, megava keteb, charchos. I just wanted that gvian to go with the ga, so that we get the feeling that we're doing it later on. I want you to look forward to the charcho that I'm going to make. So, gvian saramos, megava keteb, charchos. Nice, strong g. Future. If we're asking this question rhetorically, we're talking to ourselves. Yesterday, what was I doing? You're asking yourself. Gushin, yesterday, ras va ketebdi me. Gushin ras va ketebdi me. What was I doing yesterday? If I'm asking myself right here, right now, what am I doing here? Then, ras va keteb ak achla. Rasva keteb me ak achla. Rasva keteb ak achla me. What the hell am I doing here? Now. Again, I want to use this g, no? So, ras gava keteb mogviane beat. Ras gava keteb mogviane beat. What will I do later on? I'm asking myself, I don't know, I have no plans. Ras gava keteb me, ras gava keteb mogviane beat. What will I do later on? Again, I'm just overusing this gvian to get this gava keteb, so that we're forcing the future sounds into our vocabulary. Breakfast, lunch, dinner. Drez me va keteb di saus mes. It's finished, I've eaten it. Drez me va keteb di saus mes. Breakfast is over. Achla, right now, me va keteb sadils. Achla me va keteb sadils. breakfast is done. I'm making lunch right now. Later on, in the evening, am sagamos megava keteb vachshams. Am sagamos megava keteb vachshams. This suggesting that in the future, I'm going to be making dinner. I wrote here supper because we do say that in the UK. And I also wrote here tea because in British English, really, what you have for tea is the last meal of the day. So vachshami is actually tea in British English. Vachshams, obviously with the verb gavak eteb. Gvian sagamos megavak eteb vachshams. Slide 2 now deals with you. And the best part about this is take the verb keteba, move the a keteb, and you've already got the verb conjugated. A keteb is used in the present, past and future with the same changes as before. So shen a keteb di, you were making something. Shen a keteb, you are preparing something now. Shen ga keteb, you're going to be preparing, making something later on. Okay, let's look at some examples that we've already seen. Shen a keteb di kavas, you were making coffee. Drez, shen a keteb di kavas, you were making coffee today. Shen achla a keteb sachmels. Achla shen a keteb sachmels. Again, sachmeli, no. Sachmels, you're preparing the meal. Ams, at the moment. Shen a keteb sachmels, you're making a meal right now. In the future, like I said, I wanted to use gvian to get this g into our vocabulary. Gvian sa ramos shen ga keteb chais. You're going to be making tea. Now, again, of course, shen ga keteb, gvian sa ramos chais blends into this concept of maybe you're preparing something. So in the present, we would say shen Momzadeba chais, shen Momzadeba sachmels. Again, blending into the concept of preparing. But I'm asking you a question. What were you doing today? Right? Ras a keteb di drez shen. What were you doing today? Ras a keteb di drez shen. If I want to know what are you doing now, ras a keteb achla shen. Now this question is very common, isn't it? What are you doing? Ras a keteb achla shen. Ras a keteb. Simply, ras a keteb. What are you doing? That is common in a chat, for example. Shen. Ras ga keteb chval shen. I'm asking what you're doing tomorrow. I'm asking, of course, about maybe I'm making plans. In the first slide, those questions were rhetorical. This one is all about planning. Ras ga keteb chval shen. I could say ras ga keteb mogvia nebit shen. What are you doing later on? Now the interrogative questions make more sense. Let's look at what we were looking at before. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Amdilas shen a keteb di sausmes. Amdilas in the morning, shen a keteb di sausmes. Amdilas shen a keteb di sausmes. You were making breakfast this morning. Shen a keteb sadils achla. Right now. Ams. Yep, at this moment, right now. Let's say Chval shen ga keteb vachshams. Tomorrow you're going to be making dinner. We're making plans now. So suddenly keteba is not necessarily about getting your hands dirty, but now when I'm interacting with you, I'm starting to open up a field of interest as to what are you going to be doing? Ras keteb achla shen. What are you doing now? Ras ga keteb chval shen. What What are you going to be doing tomorrow? What'll you do tomorrow? And so on. Slide 3 might be the most complicated one because it really separates the concept of what you're making and doing and preparing and just the general question of what are you up to. Keteba is used to ask what you're doing, but maybe because I want to plan something with you. So let's take it as it is. The biggest tip, of course, is SSS. We're adding S's everywhere, not only to the verb, but also to what you're doing with the verb. So here's the first example. Is ketebs vachshams. Is ketebs vachshams. S. Achla is ketebs vachshams. Perhaps it might be better to say Achla is Momzadeb's vachshams. That's very true, but we are practicing keteba today. But let's move then to the past. D becomes da. Is keteb da. Is keteb da chavas. Gushin. Gushin is keteb da chavas. Drez is keteb da chavas. This person, male or female, was making coffee. We looked at the present, into the future. Nico ga ketebs chais. Here the ga is the future. Here the s is him or her. And then chais also needs an s. Nico ga ketebs chais. We used future references, for example, gvian sa ramos Nico ga ketebs chais. Here it seems that there are s's added everywhere. Let's look at the interrogative questions because they do start to illustrate the difference between what are you up to and what are you preparing. Gushin ras ketebda is. Yesterday, what was she doing? What was she up to yesterday? And I'm looking out of curiosity. Not concretely, what was she preparing? Then I'm very specifically going to need Momzadeba. Perhaps the question is, Rasa ketebs achla is. What is this person doing? And they want to be super concrete. Ras ketebs achla is. Is Momzadeb's vachshams. What is she doing now? She's preparing dinner. Of course, in this case, it might be possible to say Ras ketebs achla is ketebs vachshams. The question is in the answer, so it seems a little bit cleaner, but that's why I introduced this new verb at the beginning, both together. Now it starts to make sense. What's the difference here? I'm curious, what is Nana going to do later on? It's an open question. I just don't know. And I'm asking you, Nana mogviane beat later on. Nana ras ga ketebs mogviane beat. What is Nana doing later on? I want to make plans with her. Not what is she preparing. That would suggest that I already know that there's some kind of preparation needed. It's not such an open question with Momzadeba. Going back into the past here with breakfast, lunch and dinner, of course, the previous examples, she was making breakfast. Is ketebda saus mes tres. She was making breakfast. He was making breakfast. Ras ketebs achla is ketebs sadils. What is she doing now? She's preparing lunch. But is it better to say Ras ketebs achla is Momzadeb sadils? The answer is yes. Because Ras ketebs achla is can actually be an open question that doesn't necessarily include preparing at all. It is extremely unspecific and very common. That's when doing is not making. And that's why I said it is quite complicated. And that's why I said go big or go home. Giga ga ketebs vachshams. Chval Giga ga ketebs vachshams. Tomorrow, Giga is going to be preparing or making dinner. Slide 4 is not going to be studied today. We have done enough. But I just want to introduce it to you now because this is the content of the next workshop. It extends today's class, but perhaps superior to the A1 level, which we have been learning. The point of the tutorial next is that we're going to look at how minute changes can really define whether something was done strictly for me, whether something was done for another person, and different types of behavior of the verb that are important as we start to learn really technicalities of the Georgian verb. But not right now. That's it. That's the last slide of today, and goodbye from Chicago. I will be seeing you next in Vienna with the next video tutorial based on slide number 4. So, see you then. Bye.